Yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Book Club with Kaiden Kelly, a podcast where we read books and we talk about them on a podcast, we blog about them, we make videos about them to improve our lives, to make better decisions, to be better people. And this podcast is supposed to keep me accountable to doing that crap. And then I love to share it so that you can get all of that help, self-help, self-improvement advice as well for your health, for your wealth, for your wisdom, and for your peace and purpose and family relationships and feeling lonely and getting through hard times. All of it. It's what we're doing here, baby. This episode, we're live on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. It's 2:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It's Monday, the 23rd of January. And yeah, baby, we do this podcast live on Mondays. If you want to join us live, you join Mashed Potatoes. He's in the chat. You can join him, say what's up, share your thoughts, share some comments on the conversation. And I did get some feedback last week about how the chat is kind of distracting, and I've always agreed. But I also kind of like sometimes we get great comments. Sometimes we get dumb comments, but sometimes we get great comments. Plus, we've always done it live. I don't have any real reason to not do it live. So fuck it, we'll do it live. If you want to join us live, you need access to the links, or you need to find the links. Go to my blog, Kaiden Kelly's blog.wordpress.com, and you'll find access to, or you'll find links to the Facebook, the Twitch, the YouTube. You'll find the Apple Podcasts, the Spotify. You'll find the TikToks, the blog entries. You'll find the self-improvement worksheet that I made. It's free. It's all free. So go to the blog, KaidenKellys blog.wordpress.com to find more of the shit. To get more, I just published a blog on, well, I'll talk about it in a minute. But I'm doing my best to post, and I'm all by myself. I'm doing everything I can, get it to, just get as much info out there as possible to help everybody in whatever medium they resonate with the most. Saint Steve's TV, he's here. He usually makes plans during my podcast intentionally. I know he does, but today he decided to join until 3, it sounds like. Welcome, boys. Yeah, if you like this, I got another podcast I do as well. It's called Here's the Point with Kaiden Kelly that is also available on the blog and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere, YouTube, and there's links to that on my blog as well. It's the same format, same idea, but we do it in 15 minutes or less. So, this one's about 60 to 90 minutes. That one's about 15 minutes. So, that's how it goes around here, baby. Mashed Potato says he told me he intentionally makes plans during the podcast. Messed up, in my opinion. Yeah, he told me that too. He told me that. He said it in the Discord, like to my virtual face. And then he went on to raid my towns in Civilization 6. Now, he actually hasn't raided me. Just that one time he had a rogue knight that I had to destroy. It's coming, though. I know it is. So he's always stewing up something. So, anyway, we're going to... I'm in a weird place right now with the podcast, and that's what I wrote about. That's what I just wrote about, and I'm going to tell you about it. I'm going to tell you what's going on. And if you want to read more about it, you can, but I'm going to just talk about it right here, too. So the podcast, it's been going on for 18-plus months, and we have like 70 or 80 books that we've read and covered in those 18 months. And it's been so awesome, and I've learned so much. And at the beginning of this year, I told you I made that self-improvement worksheet, and I filled it out. I've done it. I've done the worksheet. It's super helpful, and I've made some changes to it. But the intention behind that is like to make goals for this year, but then to stick with them. So I'm doing that for myself to help me stick with my goals for all of 2023, so that we can get the most out of what we do, and so that we don't quit, and we can reach the accomplishments that we want, the goals that we set for ourselves. And anyway, I was making podcast goals. I was making writing goals, reading goals, and I realized that throughout all of my blog entries that I do, even like when I try to write a script for TikTok or something stupid, I'll be writing out my thoughts, and then I'll have like quotes or stories pop in my head from authors, from books that we've read. And those are awesome, and I want to use them. So I write, like I paraphrase, but then I struggle to find the quote, or I don't remember the story correctly, or I misattribute the author, or I maybe not misattribute, but I don't get the right author, or I don't remember the right author. And anyway, I was researching on how to use my notes better. I'm sitting on 70 or 80 books of notes in my phone, and so I discovered a way that authors they read books and take notes, and use how they record and keep the stories and the quotes that they read. And I read up on Ryan Holiday's method, who we know about because we've read several of his books and we love his work. And he stole, or not stole, but he what's the right word? He took from Robert Greene's method. What's that word? There's a word I'm looking for. Anyway, Robert Greene and like tons of authors. Probably all authors and writers have some kind of method of reading material, learning material, but then recording it so that they can use it later on. And I was reading up on Ryan Holiday's. He posted about it on his blog, and he does an index. He uses index cards to record thoughts and quotes and stories. And he's like, this is my method. And then he kind of explained how Robert Greene does his. He uses like a color coordinating system. And then I watched a YouTube video on another guy talking about the same index card system, and he uses Excel to index his cards. And so I was experimenting with this. I was going through some of my books, and dude, I got an awesome system of indexing my notes so that I can use them. So I can use my notes like all the time and pull from specific topics, or use, search for keywords. And anyway, so it's January 23rd, and for the last almost 23 days, that's all I've been doing is indexing my books, because I get like an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes longer, of material from all these books that we've read that I'm able to talk about, which is why we do the podcast, which that's what this is all about, is talking about the material. But the index cards, but indexing the notes gives me access to all of that material down the road, because I'll talk about it once from my notes, and then I'll just remember it randomly or in conversation sometimes, but I can't use them properly when I'm writing or when I'm doing any kind of work. So yeah, for the last 23 days I've been indexing my books, and I love it. So I have like almost 100 cards right here, but I realize that is occupying most of my reading time. I still read. I'm still reading. I got 2 books that I'm reading right now. But I think I know at the beginning of the year I talked about, I was like, we're going to do the first episode of the month is going to be something, and then going to be an accountability episode where we go over our goals or talk about messages to help us reach our goals. And then the rest of the month will be book episodes. But I think I'm going to adjust that a little more even, and do maybe like one new book a month now. and and regurgitate a lot of the info, a lot of the stuff that we're indexing, that I'm indexing, because it's all it's like the highlights again. I'm pretty much going through my notes as I take them in my phone, and finding them in the books, and finding quotes and passages and recording them. And so all of, I pulled from the last couple days of cards, right? That's what we're going to talk about today. Are these I'm just going to read them because I've only got I've only read a few chapters of this new book that I'm reading. And I'll this podcast is called Book Club. I get it. But this indexing thing is really important to me right now. And all my books fell down from my shelf behind me. So if you're watching the video, you can see I usually have and my blinder is broken. Wow, this is ratchet. My books fell down off my shelf, so I just have stacked them instead of standing them upright. But I've got these behind. I've got like 50 books behind me, and I've got like 30 upstairs. I just got so many books to go through. So it's been a couple weeks, and I've probably gone through 3. I want to get all of the books indexed, and then as I read new books, I want to get the new books indexed, and I want to keep reading. Even like I've pulled information from. You remember the podcast episode from Plain English with Ethan Cross talking about chatter? I listened to that podcast episode, and it was so awesome. I took notes from it like I was listening to a book, and I've used that material several times on the podcast and even in my writing. But like I said, it's I want to be able to have it as I want to be able to use it. And in the early days of this podcast, we were doing lots of not lots, but we were doing podcasts as well. I was listening to certain topics, several hour episodes, like what's his face, Andrew Huberman, the Huberman Lab podcast, doing some of his on sleep. I remember, So anyway, I have all these notes in my phone, and I want to record them so I have them. And so I think what I'm going to do is just do because I'm doing note cards every day. So I'm doing I'm pumping out I do 2 hours in the morning, and then if I can get to it in the evening time, and I usually get 15 cards a day. But I'm doing a ton of extra rereading through these books that we've already read, and but I'm getting the best of the best out of these books, and I'm getting the direct quotes, direct stories. So it's not just me blabbering. So that being said, that's what we're going to do. That's what I want to do. And when I finish a book, when I finish reading a new book, then we're going to do that. And we're going to do that until I finish indexing all the books. And then after that, who knows? What I do know, though, and some awesome good news that I shared in the blog entry is that after, from doing more of the goal setting with my worksheet, I decided to reach out to some of the authors and ask for interviews. And we've landed a couple interviews coming up in the next couple weeks. And I don't want to spoil it yet. I'm really excited to sit down with us. There's 2 of them that have confirmed. We've got dates. I'm stoked out of my mind, and a couple others that have responded. And it's so awesome. And they're awesome authors on books that I really, really liked. So anyway, I'm really excited. We're going to get interview episodes intertwined with the note cards, with the new books that we're reading. We're going to get a whole bunch of content. And we're going to still once a week doing it live, as far as until someone tells me not to do it live, but we're going to do it live. All good stuff, man. So that's the latest news for Book Club. It's the latest news. Yeah, anything else going on? what did we do last week? Lots of pickleball, lots of video games, and I think that was it. Yeah, I think that's it. It was a really awesome weekend, really chill. So let's just jump into the note cards. I still want to keep it about 60 minutes, but we'll see how, I've got like my 15 cards right here. So I want to try to keep it within the same book and within the same theme, you know what I mean? So, and this is new. This is new to me. And you know what? I'm going to I have this card. Oh no, I don't have it saved anymore, but I know where it's at. When I was writing my blog entry just a second ago, just a few minutes ago, I was going through my cards, and there was it's cool because I have them indexed and numbered, like an ID number, so I know where I can search a keyword in my Excel and then find the quote. Find the number for the card and then just pull out the card. So there was I grabbed the wrong one. It was 23 instead, not 22. So I was using this one to 21, 22, 23. Oh shit, it's not that one either. Hey, it's a new system, baby, but there was a card. Fuck, where'd it go? Dude, it was in here. I still have it pulled up on the Excel, don't I? Sorry, I want to find it because there was a card. This is what practice, find all. No, it wasn't practice. Shit. Okay. All right, this is falling apart. So let me just go to my blog because I have it in my blog. I wrote the quote down in my blog. So anyway, yeah, there's a quote from Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And it was, this is what has like somewhat inspired what I'm doing. He said, if you lack the motivation to make an important change in your life, do something, anything really, and then harness the reaction to that action as a way to begin motivating yourself. If we follow the do something principle, failure feels unimportant. When the standard of success becomes merely acting, we propel ourselves ahead. We feel free to fail, and that failure moves us forward. So I was looking for some kind of inspiration for my blog entry, and I found this one. And you got to be willing to try anything. You got to be able to to go to work. You got to be willing to go to work, trial and error, and deal with and then figure it out as you go. Deal with the consequences. You got to be able to experiment. If you're in especially if you're in a rough place in life, and I talked about this last week about the spirals. When you're in a low place in life, and life is hard, or something's hard, or not going your way, or there's tragedy, things are out of your control, especially, it's easy to just to continue the downward spiral and to let one negative event compound into another, or to turn into another negative event, and then let those compound. And then you can get stuck spiraling downwards. And so Manson's advice, I'm not saying that's where the podcast is going. In fact, the podcast is growing, and it's awesome. And I have no idea why, but it's awesome. But what Manson is saying is that if you're in this position, if you're in this downward spiral of life, and it's tough to find inspiration or motivation to change, or to turn things around. You got to stop the negative spiral, and then you got to start going back up. And the further you are down, the longer it takes to get up hot, to get back up to, to feeling good about yourself and about the world. It does not just naturally happen. It does not just occur. It doesn't just happen. So yeah, he says if you want to make an important change in your life, if you lack the motivation, especially, just get started doing something. Just do it. Just do something. And then when the standard of success becomes merely acting, we propel ourselves ahead. If your standard of success is just showing up and doing the work, regardless of if it makes you famous or if it makes you feel better or if it's easy, regardless of any of those things, if our standard of success is doing what we're supposed to be doing, then failing at it doesn't mean anything. Failure feels unimportant, he says. We feel free to fail, and that failure moves us forward. So I'm here with a new idea for the podcast, for my writing career, my content creation career, and it's the path that we're going down. We're gonna read from note cards now, but we're still gonna get good notes. They're fucking awesome. I mean, I love it's probably my favorite part of the day. I've rearranged my routine now, so instead of waking up and going straight to the gym, I wake up and I do my note cards for 2 hours almost. I try to get 2 hours in before 8 a.m. I get breakfast, I do reading, and then I do note cards and writing and meditation, and I get a whole bunch of stuff done in before 8 a.m. I love it. It's my favorite part of the day, honestly. Yeah, it's quiet, and Holiday talks a ton about like getting up, or Holiday talks about it because all the Stoics talk about it, and a lot of people that give it life advice talk about the benefits of getting up early and how it helps, how it can only help, really. So yeah, it's I get up early, and we do the writing, the reading, the meditating, and all before 8. I don't know why I mentioned that, but I love it. It's my favorite. It is my favorite part of the day. So some note cards from today. I've been rereading. I haven't just been going down the list of like most recent books for the note cards. I've kind of looked at the more recent ones and then are picking out my favorite ones that I've already, my favorite books that I've done, or favorite episodes, favorite notes. So I've indexed Discipline is Destiny by Holiday. I've indexed Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And right now I'm indexing How to Think Like a Roman Emperor by Donald Robertson. So here's some notes from the Robertson. Anyone who could adopt a healthier and more rational set of core values with greater indifference towards the things most of us are wrong about in life should be able to become much more emotionally resilient. If you remember Robertson, he's the guy that I think he's from Scotland, actually, and he is a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but I think he's a psychologist. And he got into psychology a little later in his life, but also studies Stoicism. And the book, How to Think Like a Roman Emperor, is like him painting the similarities between how he really analyzes Marcus Aurelius's life primarily. So he uses his life as an example of how the Stoics got a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy correct. It's really, it's fascinating. So a lot of the techniques and methods that psychologists use today are things that the Stoics have been implementing, just with different words and with different intention. It's not like people come to them like people didn't go to Marcus Aurelius like a doctor. In fact, if you just for historical context, Aurelius was the last of the noble Roman emperors. I think that's how they refer to him. And all of the Meditations, which is his record, is his journal. It's his private journal that he never intended anyone to see. So he was raised to be the emperor. He co-emperored with his brother or his stepbrother, and he was raised and taught by, who was his predecessor? Antoninus? I got it right here. I think his predecessor was Antoninus, and he who was, a mentor to him and was super. Oh shit, who was it? I'm not gonna find it in a good enough time. But yeah, he was raised by Stoic leaders as well. Or at least just virtuous and philosophical leaders. So, but he wrote in his journal a whole bunch of just his philosophy, and things like a couple of passages that come to mind. Actually, one that I read in the Daily Stoics email today was how Aurelius he writes in his journal how he resisted the temptation to take advantage of one of his lady servants or something like that. And Holiday, who is the author of the Daily Stoic, writes that it seems weird that someone would journal about that privately to themselves, that they didn't take advantage sexually of their lady servant. But he's like, as an emperor, the Roman emperor, perhaps one of the most powerful people on the planet, if not the most powerful person on the planet at that time, resisted. He could take advantage of anybody, and surely powerful people do take advantage of others for their own benefit or for their own gain or for pleasure. And Aurelius had that power and never exercised it. And he writes about it. He writes that he's tempted by it. He's tempted to be scandalous, and but he fights the urges and he resists and he stays loyal to his wife and his family. And in the passage he basically explains this is the baseline. This is like level 1 to virtue, is to have integrity and to not be sexually scandalous. So we're talking about the most powerful person on the planet at the time, and that's what I've got the book now, so I'll show the book. That's what we're doing here, and I love in the illustration on the cover. It's a bust of Marcus, and he's got headphones in, so that's cool. Okay, so let's get back to the quote. Maybe did I cover the book enough? So Donald Robertson, he's a psychologist, and he illustrates the similarities between Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy. So on page 8, he says, anyone who could adopt a healthier and more rational set of core values with greater indifference towards the things most of us worry about in life should be able to become much more emotionally resilient. And that's what I was writing in my journal this morning. I was writing about my exercise goals, and I was kind of going back and forth on this idea of church. See, this is what I'm saying. Like a quote from Winston Churchill. He said something like, "Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress," or rather, perfection is the enemy of progress. Something like that. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about my exercise goals, and because there's so many people on social media, so many smart people, researchers, scientists who are propagating the most efficient ways to do everything. And of course, we want to do things the right way. We want to lift weights the right way, and we want to get the right amount of cardio in, and we want to eat the right amount of calories. Like, data totally matters. That's not the point. The point is, if you do, like, doing anything is better than waiting to know all of the information before you do something. So like I was thinking about my own exercise goals and what I value, and I think I talked about it last week. Maybe I didn't, but last week I talked last week I canceled my yoga membership because I'm like going over my values, my exercise goals and exercise values, health values. I want to be a healthier individual, and I was just considering through, like, with my worksheet. Part of the worksheet is like, what do you want out of your life? What's the reason that you want to do, that you're even thinking about reaching this accomplishment or these goals? And my health really revolves around me feeling really good when I'm 80. And Peter Attia, what does he call it? Steez, he calls it the decathlon, something about like being the healthiest version of yourself when you're 100. Peter Attia has coined a term for it, but I can't remember. And that's what Attia's goal is. If you don't know Peter Attia, he's like an exercise scientist who's one of those guys who's always explaining how to do things optimally so that you feel your best when you're 100. And the centenarian decathlon. Yes. Yeah, that's what he calls it. That's Peter Attia's thing. So there's definitely like the right way to do things, but if you're like me and I want to know all the data and I want to do everything perfectly because I don't want to waste my time and I want to do it right, I don't want to have to do it again, and I want to see results and I want to get results quick and yada yada yada. So some people like me freeze when that's the case. Like I still get that way. I still sometimes don't take action because I'm afraid of starting the work and having to start over because I did it wrong. And so, and then I'm also afraid of like not seeing progress. And see, here I go again. But I remember Holiday quoting an author talking about the shitty first draft. Who coined that? Someone coined you got to write the shitty first draft. The first draft of everything that you do is going to suck. Almost always. It will almost always suck the first time. But you have to write the first draft if you want to get the second draft, if you want to get the third draft, if you want to get the fourth draft, and if you want to get the final version, the final product. You have to write the shitty first draft. And there's no getting around it. And that's why it's so important to understand your values and understand what you're willing to, like, the shit that you're willing to deal with, to put up with, because it's something that brings you meaning or purpose in your life. So, yeah, exercise. Again, here I go back to my writing about exercise. I was thinking, I'm following this kettlebell, I'm loosely following a kettlebell routine for mass. And I was doing a little bit of research or just looking around on like the best exercises to do with kettlebells. But that Winston Churchill quote keeps coming to mind. Don't let perfection be the enemy of progress. And that doesn't have anything to do with this note card that I just quoted. It has a little bit to do, because at the beginning he says, anyone who could adopt a healthier and more rational set of core values with greater indifference towards the things most of us worry about in life. That's what I'm talking about, core values. And our core values, Manson talks about core values. He goes over shitty ones. He goes over great values. And most, if I remember right, Manson's standard for shitty values are things that are immediate or self-serving, but good values are there's the cardinal virtues, which are courage, temperance, wisdom, and justice. I think Socrates coined those. And those are the, those are what those things promote: integrity. They promote long suffering and discipline to get, to be the best version of yourself. So, yeah, man. And then he says, rational set of core values with greater indifference towards the things most of us worry about in life. That's an interesting comment. I think that basically what he's saying is, we care too much about, we sweat the small stuff too much. And I'm totally guilty of sweating the small stuff. Things like that so-and-so didn't text me back, or so-and-so sent me this as a response and it seemed aggressive, or it seemed uninterested, or they seem upset. Sweating the small stuff is like so-and-so didn't show up for work, or I didn't get that raise, or I guess that could be kind of a big deal, but a lot of those things that we sweat come from they come from shitty values, and they don't come from usually a healthy place. We usually sweat small stuff because we are stressed about things that don't actually matter. And what he's saying is, if we could change our mindset to focus on, or to have better values, and to pay attention to what's most important in life, and as he describes it, have a greater indifference towards the things most of us worry about in life, we should be able to become much more emotionally resilient. Resilience is awesome too. That's why we do cold showers. We make our bodies physically resilient by doing cold showers voluntarily. Or if you're like Steez, you take a bath with ice cubes, because that shit's that's as hard as it gets, man. That's as hard as it gets. We do it to make our bodies more resilient. And having better values being indifferent towards most things in our life makes us emotionally resilient. All right, the next card. Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy were bound to arrive at similar conclusions about what sort of psychological techniques might be helpful to people suffering from anxiety, anger, depression, and other problems. Yeah, there you go. There's the quote. How he uses Stoicism and cognitive behavioral therapy to in their psychological procedures to help people who are suffering from anxiety, anger, depression, and other problems. Cool. That's all I got. When we take Stoic philosophy and cognitive behavioral therapy on as a philosophy of life with daily practice, we have the opportunity to learn greater emotional resilience, strength of character, and moral integrity. There you go. There's another one about emotional resilience. With daily practice. Yeah, what does daily practice look like for, Stoic philosophy look like daily? For me, for me it looks like not just like staying away from bad stuff being like staying up too late, or compulsively eating, or neglecting work responsibilities. Not just not doing those things, but being aware of why I want to do those things, and then like letting those feelings stir inside of me and understand them better. It's not just about, like over the weekend, I played an unhealthy amount of video games, probably by most people's standards, and I had a really good time. And I'm definitely going to do it again at some point in my life, just because video games they're fun to me, and I enjoy the time talking shit with my friends. But if I'm not aware of why I'm doing those, why I want to play video games, I'll do it mindlessly. And if any of us do anything mindlessly, it can definitely get away from us. Remember Sadhguru, and just because of his accent is probably why I remember this so so often, but Sadhguru from Karma, what was the book? Karma, yeah, just called Karma. Sadhguru said something about, having awareness is the most important thing we can all do. And I wrote about that in my blog recently. I wrote about it in my self-improvement worksheet. You got to be aware of what's going on, why you do the things that you want. Then you have to accept the way that things are, the things that you're doing, or the place you are in your life. If you want to make any improvements, you have to first be aware of what's happening and what you're doing, and then you have to accept them before you can make any changes. You can't change something that you're not even familiar, but you can't change anything you're not aware of. You can't, if you are a smoker and you aren't aware that smoking is bad for you, and even further, if you're not aware that you value your health and you want to be healthy when you're 80 and you don't want to deal with the complications of smoking, if you're not even aware that that's part of your core values, you're going to continue to smoke, and you're going to continue to cause damage to your body that's going to bring your quality of life down, not because of the consequences of smoking, but because you went in direct opposition to your core values. And that applies to everything. When I have a compulsion to overeat, I have a compulsion to play excessive amount of video games. And if I'm not aware of why I'm doing those things, I'm just going to do them. I'm just going to play lots of video games. I'm just going to eat lots of food. And being aware, if I'm not aware of what I value in my life, what I want out of my life, or what I know gives me meaning, or what gives me peace and purpose, if I'm not aware of those things, then I'm just going to continue to play video games and eat food and neglect my work and my relationships. And I'm going to be sad, and I feel depressed and feel anxiety, and I won't know. Whoops, I keep hitting my microphone. I won't know why, because I'm not aware. But you got to be aware. And that's what Stoic philosophy is to me. That's what yoga philosophy is to me. It's being aware of your situation. It's being aware of you. It's being aware of the world, of your circumstances, the consequences of your actions, the consequences of other people's actions. It's being aware. It's like being as aware as possible. It's essential. It really is like the very, very first step. We could talk about the first step, but it's such a critical step in self-improvement is awareness. Cool. And so daily practice, you got to practice awareness daily. And how do you practice awareness daily? You spend time alone meditating. You spend time and I read somewhere too, there's like tons of different ways to meditate. Of course there are. Meditation is not just sitting in a room with candles and incense and laying on a mat with the ocean wave sounds playing on the speakers. That's one form of meditation. But writing is a form of meditation. Walking with your thoughts. Anything that removes distractions can be a form of meditation. Because what meditating is, it's not... Mashed Potatoes and I talked about it. Or he brought it up once in an episode. Meditating is not removing certain thoughts or beliefs about yourself or about the world. It's always about being aware of them or recognizing them. That's what meditation is. Meditation is like someone in one of these books explained like the horrible thought that they had of having a kid, or having a baby, and like in one moment feeling an immense amount of joy for having this kid, and then in the next moment imagining what would happen if they dropped the kid, or if the kid like smashed its head against the counter, like something horrible. And this person, I can't remember who said this, but they would say, this is a horrible thing to think. Of course it's horrible to think about something horrible happening to someone that you love or care about. But the thought is not what's immoral. The thought is helping you be aware of what you value. And if you're afraid of harming or hurting something that you care about, it will help you not behave that way in the future. So, and like the Buddhists say, we don't identify with our thoughts. We are not our thoughts. We're the thing that observes our thoughts, the consciousness that observes our bodies. We're not our thoughts, but we need to observe our thoughts. We need to observe what goes on in our brain, what makes us happy, what makes us sad, what turns us on, what turns us off, what gets us excited, what gives us anxiety. We have to be aware of, we have to think about them. And that's why the Stoics practice memento mori, contemplating your death, meditating on your death. Because if there's one thing in life that's inevitable, it's death. And we don't spend any time like in the mainstream media talking about our own death. Lots of talk about other people dying, but not a lot of talk about us or you dying. It could be after the end of the episode, it could be at the end of the night, end of the year, or it could be in 60 years or 160 years. Who knows what's going to happen in 100 years? Maybe people are living to 260, by the end of the century. Who knows? So, that's what daily Stoic practice looks like. I like the way this is going so far. I like the cards. The Stoics, this is from page 14, still talking about how to think like a Roman emperor. Let me get some water. The Stoics can teach you how to find a sense of purpose in life, how to face adversity, how to conquer anger within yourself, moderate your desires, experience healthy sources of joy, endure pain and illness patiently with dignity, exhibit courage in the face of your own anxieties, cope with loss, and perhaps even confront your own mortality while remaining as unperturbed as Socrates. Yeah, I basically just said all of that too. So, the Stoics can teach you how to find a sense of purpose in life, how to face adversity. Yeah. Do I need to read it again? Okay, I'll read it again because I don't think I have anything to add because I just talked about it. The Stoics can teach you how to find a sense of purpose in your life, how to face adversity, how to conquer anger within yourself, moderate your desires, experience healthy sources of joy, endure pain and illness patiently and with dignity, exhibit courage in the face of your own anxieties, cope with loss, and perhaps even confront your own mortality while remaining as unperturbed as Socrates. There's another book that we read, if you remember, The Quest for Character, which is about can you teach someone virtue, and it's a ton of dialogue about Socrates trying to teach his student Alcibiades, who was a popular public figure at the time. And Socrates, I just read this too. I actually think I wrote this on another card, but I'm not going to find it. But Socrates was the guy, he was murdered, he was sentenced to death for, how do they phrase it? Like poisoning the youth mentally. What's the word that they use? I don't remember. So but Socrates, he's not just known for his philosophy. He's also known for how he handled his own death. He was sentenced to death. I don't remember how. I think he got his head chopped. I don't remember. But he, even when he was convicted and sentenced to death row, he stood before the council or the judges or the jury or whoever it was, and he taught philosophy to them. And he went to his death teaching philosophy, because to him, to live a good life was to obtain wisdom, and an evil I would say a purposeless life would be one without wisdom, without virtue. And so he's known for going to his death with grace and with poise. So you consider your own lot in life, where you're at, what you struggle with, what gives you a hard time, and you you can rest assured that someone else at some other point in history has felt something similar to you. You can rest assured that you're not alone in your own struggle. You're not alone in your own struggle. And then two, you can find peace through it, and you can get through most adversity. I think objectively, the Stoics say that you can get through any adversity and remain, as he says, as unperturbed as Socrates, which reminds me of Viktor Frankl. I use him. He is the shining example to me of enduring hardship and coming out of on the other side as better off through your adversity. Frankl was a survivor of Nazi concentration camps, and he endured more than what most people could possibly conceive. And he writes about it in his book, his experiences. And he was a psychiatrist, or a psychologist. They're the same, right? Isn't a psychiatrist just a psychologist that can prescribe people medicine? Isn't that the only difference? Anyway, Viktor Frankl, he's the shining example of getting through involuntary suffering, while Anyway, but whatever struggles you have in your life, you can get through it. You can get through it, and you can get through it with peace and with clarity and with poise, just as Socrates. Okay, let's keep going. Where we're at, like 50 minutes? Yeah, we'll just cut it off at 60 minutes. I love it. The true goal of life for Stoics isn't to acquire as many external advantages as possible, but to use whatever befalls us wisely. The Stoic sage, or wise man, needs nothing but uses everything well. The fool believes himself to need. I don't know what I wrote there. Countless? The fool believes himself to need. Yes, countless. Oh, I see what I did there. I'm going to fix that real quick. Okay. Let me start that over. Sorry. Oh, mashed potatoes. The note cards have been good. I don't know what your emoji is, but yes. Oh, it's a speaker? It looks like a half moon. That did not come through well through Twitch. The true goal of life for Stoics isn't to acquire as many external advantages as possible, but to use whatever befalls us wisely. The Stoic sage, or wise man, needs nothing but uses everything well. The fool believes himself to need countless things, but he uses them all badly. So, yes, it's like frugality, pretty much. If you're familiar with Seneca, I'm learning more about Seneca too, who was an advisor to Nero, and who also ended up sending Seneca, or I guess not also, but Nero sent Seneca to his death too, just like Socrates. And Seneca, from everything that I've heard about Seneca or read about him, he was a man that enjoyed fine pleasures of life. He's known for his Stoic philosophy, but he's also known to have lived somewhat a lavish life, as lavish as you could for the second century of AD. And what am I trying to get at? One thing that I did read recently was that at the beginning of the year, it was Holiday wrote about this again in his daily Stoic reading list. He or mailing list, whatever. He, at the beginning of every new year, Seneca would take a cold bath. He would do, and maybe he just did it once a year. He just did a cold shower or a cold bath once a year. But it was supposed to be a reminder to him that he can live his life without any of his comforts or any of his pleasures. And at other times throughout the year, he would live. Oh yeah, it was a TikTok. I read it in the blog, and then I saw a TikTok because now I'm seeing the visuals where Seneca would, at certain times throughout the year, would sleep on the ground with nothing but a blanket and would only eat bread and water. And a man that was wealthy, but he would subject himself to these hardships, to just displeasures, to voluntary forms of suffering, because it does several things for you. And this is, I've mentioned things like the voluntary suffering thing. Things like exercising sucks, but we volunteer to do it. Things like cold showers, things like discipline yourself when it comes to like eating and watching TV and any kind of playing video games, social media, any kind of entertainment. Discipline, like we subject ourselves to some levels of suffering voluntarily, because it teaches us, one, it builds physical and emotional resilience. It teaches us that we can live a meaningful and peaceful life without the things it reminds us that it's not the things that we have that give us meaning or purpose. It's how we conduct ourselves. And so you can be like an Epictetus, another ancient Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and then later gained his freedom and talked about his experience as a slave, but followed the school of Stoicism. You can be like Viktor Frankl and be taken into concentration camps, but you can maintain your composure. You can maintain your dignity, to whatever level possible, right? To certain things you don't have any control over or say of, but you can always, at the very least, you're talking to yourself. And then if you're someone like Ryan Holiday, who puts out Stoic philosophy more than anybody else in the world right now, probably, and is very successful from his work, from the dozen books that he's written, the mailing lists, the interviews, the bookstore that he has, all of his shit. He's a wealthy person. But even he knows, and he learns it from all of these other Stoics, and he knows it for himself through his own experience, that it's not the things in life that give you meaning or purpose or peace. It's the way you conduct yourself, and it's how you respond to your circumstances. So I bring this up because Seneca, who was a wealthy person, also talked about how we don't need wealth. He didn't need wealth, but it's not unvirtuous to pursue it or to obtain it or to have it and to use it. In fact, Frankl again talks about we don't suffer because we're masochists, and Buddha says that there is no what's the word? It's kind of like virtue. There is no value in suffering itself. Like, you're not a more virtuous person because you've endured more suffering. So we're not masochistic. We don't want to suffer for the sake of suffering, but we want to remind ourselves through little doses and through discipline and through practice, one, that we're in control of our bodies. Well, to some level, but we can control, at the very, very least, we can always control how we respond to our environment, to the things that we do, to the things we say. We can't control what happens in our environment. We can't control if we're like a Viktor Frankl who gets taken in as a prisoner, and we can't control if we're a Seneca who has a ton of money and is an advisor to an emperor. We can't, or if you're the emperor himself, if you're Marcus Aurelius, you can't control that. You can't control if you're born into to be a Roman emperor. Well, his story is a little more complicated than that, because he wasn't born, like, he wasn't the direct predecessor from birth. He was adopted, and then raised to become, but later on in his life, like his biological parents weren't royalty. I don't remember the exact story. I'm learning all this shit with you guys. So yeah, so it's not unvirtuous or it's not what would that be? Like, what's the opposite of virtue? Vice? It's not a vice to have good fortune, or to have money, or to have comfortable things, to have to have AC and to use AC. Like, you're not more virtuous because you don't pay, or because you don't buy an AC unit when it's hot, or that you don't use the heater when it's cold. You're not, in fact, I used to do this to myself a few years ago as I was learning all this. I thought, okay, well, then I can be tougher than the weather, right? And I would drive without my AC on when it's hot, or without my heat when it's cold, just because I'm like, I'll be a better person because of this. But there's no sense in, like, we're not masochistic. I'm not masochistic. It sucks. And like, I laugh at it now, because I thought it would make me a more virtuous person, but it doesn't. Especially when the intention isn't right, when you don't have the right, the right intention behind it, your decisions. And then on the other side, if you're not aware of what money is, or what comforts are, and what they do for you, and that they're not the point of life, or that they don't provide purpose, you're going to pursue them endlessly. You're going to figure out how to make tons of money. You're going to figure out how to, you could do it you can have, figure out how to sleep with all the boys or the girls, figure out how to get to the top of promotion of your job, or the most prestigious position in your religion, in your job, everywhere. Because you're not going to know why those things are valuable, or if they're even valuable at all, or why they matter, why they don't matter. So I think that's it. I think that's all we're going to do today. I'm like an hour in, and I loved this. This was awesome. I'm just going to be pumping out cards like fucking crazy for the next year, probably. And when new books pop up, new books will pop up, and we'll talk about them. But for now, we're going to go through the cards, and yeah, shit. If you don't like this and you have feedback, of course I want to hear it. If it's constructive, I don't want people to just be rude to be rude, because that sucks. But I love to hear constructive feedback, and I always want to make, because this podcast is for me. I do these note cards for me, right? I do this so I can better understand what I'm doing, what I'm studying, what I'm learning, how to integrate it into my life better. But I share it with the intention that you can use the information for yourself as well. So if you have ideas, of course, I want to hear them to make this better. You can reach me by going to my blog, kaidenkellysblog.wordpress.com, KAIDENKELLYS blog.wordpress.com. There's, I think my email's on there, honestly. But you can find my socials. You can message me on my socials. You can, and then you can find the other podcasts. You can find the blog, the videos, all of it. It's all there, baby. And we'll be doing this again next week. So if you want to join it live, go to the Facebook, the Twitch, the YouTube, follow, subscribe, turn on your notifications, whatever you got to do. And you can join us here. Otherwise, we post on Tuesdays to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the places. And thanks for showing up. You show up for yourself, really. You're not showing up for me. I'm going to be here anyway. If you show up, you're here for yourself. If you stick out these episodes, it's because you want to gain some kind of information to help your own life. And that's what this is all about. I do this for me, but you consuming the information is you doing it, trying to make your life better too. So that's kudos to you. Congratulations on making small steps every day to improve your life. Keep it up. We're here for 2023, man. We'll be here next week. See you then. Have a great week.